Unseen University was positioned along a large stretch in the River Ankh, and its campus was convoluted enough that it was hard to tell where the university ended and the city began. It would be wrong to say that the people of the city respected the wizards of the university, and it would be wrong to say that they hated them. In fact, all you could really say was that both the citizens and the wizards were glad of the wall that stopped them from having to socialize on a daily basis. Mrs. Foames?
Yes, I am she. What do you want?
May I come in?
No, you may not.
I've come about the job.
Is that a fact? Very well, you may enter, but wipe your feet. I won't have the help messing up the carpets. Now, you've come for the job, Mr.
Luton. And yes, I am interested in the job.
Well, as the head chambermaid, the decisions about hiring staff falls on my shoulders. Do you have any experience?
No, but I'm a fast learner.
Well, the pay is $2 a day. There are no perks. If you want it, it's yours.
I'll take the job. When do I start?
You can start now by making the beds. The dorm is through that door. I advise you to leave before the students get back.
Why?
Boys will be boys, Mr. Luton, and apprentice wizards are the worst kind of boys imaginable.
Is it dangerous working here? Only I heard that one of the wizards was murdered.
Don't let that bother you, Mr. Luton. The affairs of the staff are not our concern.
You don't think I'm in any danger?
Goodness, no. The odd death is just the natural course of campus politics, I'm afraid. It's a shocking turn of affairs, but we mustn't question it. Dead men's pointy boots, and all that.
I guess I'd better get to work.
Very good.
What are you doing here?
The name's Luton. I'm working for Mrs. Foames.
You're the new bed maker, eh? Well, you can't come any further than this, Luton. Wizards only in the library, thank you.
Wizards only?
Well, wizards, apprentices, and orangutans.
Are you a porter?
No, I'm a bledlow. And there's a difference, all right?
I hear the reader of esoteric occultism was murdered.
Yep. Old Matham was so full of poison, even the worms wouldn't touch him.
He was poisoned?
That's right. Right here in the Widdershins wing of the university.
You don't sound concerned.
I just keep an eye on the students. The wizards can do what they like to each other.
Who do you think killed Matham?
Well, that shouldn't be hard to work out, eh? Just see who fills his shoes.
You think it was an internal matter?
I don't see why not. No one else has got a reason to be killing wizards, have they, eh?
Have you heard the expression, dead men's pointy boots?
Of course.
What does it mean?
Well, Towards the upper levels of magic, where the number of positions get few and far between, wizards advance primarily by the untimely death of their bosses.
And the pointy boots?
Well, the point is, no questions are asked as to the emptying of those pointy boots.
Well, I'd better leave you to it. I tried to head down to the library, but the porter stopped me.
Wizards only in the library, thank you.
The dorm was full of the jangling scents of the students, but the most surprising thing was the octarine board. As a wolf, I smelt the words on the board. The chalk marks showed up as sparkling traces against the odorless board. It seemed to be a list of subjects the young apprentices were studying. Occult perils of lace-making, basic myth and monsters, principles of thaumic imponderability, and temples of the Great Nev. Under the list of subjects were the words, "You must read a chapter on each before the next lecture." Given the smell of the unlocker, I was grateful it was locked. The only interesting thing I could find in the unlocker was some books. What have we got? Occult Primer, Monster Fun Grimoire, Fullamyth, The Theory of Thaumic Imponderability, Lost Temples of the Great Nev. I altered one of the subjects on the board, switching the Great Nev for Alkali. Now all I had to do was see if anyone took the bait. Useful though they are. The Merchants' Guild was the youngest of the Ankh-Morpork guilds, founded in self-defense by the city's traders and shopkeepers when they realized their role in the grand scheme of things was to be robbed. Robbing fat merchants, it seemed, was a perfectly socially acceptable, even heroic thing to do. Consequently, they weren't the friendliest of guilds either. I wasn't holding out much hope that they'd help me. Evening.
Usually is when the sun sets.
Is everyone in this city a smart aleck?
Who's he?
He used to be a regular at the Mended Drum. He made a reputation as a know-it-all.
Used to be?
The Mended Drum is a bad place to use the phrase, no.
Where did they find his body?
The Shades. And the Diesel Gate. His kidney down a well in Dolly's sister's, I think. Bits of his innards all over the place. Sounds like he had a lot of guts. About this merchant that was killed.
Sorry, I'm not allowed to discuss the incident with outsiders. A guild policy.
It wouldn't hurt to tell me the broad details, would it?
It would hurt a lot. They'd throw me off the roof.
No one's going to know.
I'd know about hitting the ground.
Is it really that important to you?
The Merchants Guild takes its policies very seriously.
So it seemed. I had to find a way to exploit that. I hear up at the Unseen University they talk about dead men's pointy boots.
Yes, I've heard of that.
Really?
Yes, they ask no questions about how a wizard's shoes were emptied.
Operate the same policy here, do you?
What? Hey, what are you implying?
Well, you know. Here you are, stuck on the door. Then a merchant gets killed, leaving a vacancy in the hierarchy.
I did not kill Gaming.
But there aren't any witnesses to that, are there?
There aren't any witnesses at all. He was alone in the guild house when... Oops.
Thanks for the information.
Wait. Don't tell anyone I said anything. They'll lynch me.
I'll keep quiet if you tell me everything you know.
No, I've already said too much.
Well, it was good while it lasted. Now all I had to find out was how Gaiman had been killed. And I had a feeling I wasn't going to learn that here. Well, goodbye for now.
Who would Sarah like to see this time?
Can I see the Count?
I am not in a position to know how good your vision is, but you may see the Count, which I believe is what Sir actually meant in Sir's untutored way.
Still here, I see.
In a sense.
Well, goodbye. I'm sure we'll meet again.
Oh, you can be certain of it.
What have we got? Occult Primer, Monster Fun Grimoire, Fulamyth, The Theory of Thaumic Imponderability. The only interesting thing I could find in the unlocker was some books. A copy of Frescoes and Fatal Traps of the Temples of Alkali miraculously appeared after I changed the Octarine board. I guess the students took their studies more seriously than I thought, but fortunately they still didn't have much idea what it was they were studying most of the time. I had a feeling I wasn't going to get away with stealing the book. The pendant's design matched the one in the book for the seal of the temple of Anu Anu at Al-Kali. The temple was famed for its intricate door mechanism, and the book described how to manipulate the seal to open the temple doors. I used the same method on the pendant, and it opened with a faint click. Inside was a small piece of paper with names on it. One name leapt out at me. Therma. I decided to keep the list to myself. I have some more questions.
Ask them, if you must.
I wasn't about to reveal that I had the list to Mooncalf. I had a feeling that would be suicide. But perhaps I could use it to trap him. Someone told me that you know Therma.
Indeed. And who might that have been?
It's not important. Is she part of your cult?
No. No, she's not.
But you know her.
No, I've never met her.
I see. What about Satrap?
Are you intending to bore me with a list of people's names? I haven't time for this tomfoolery. I must preach the gospel of Anu Anu.
Thy kingdom Coom and all that.
Yes, indeed.
I'd clearly unsettled him mentioning Coom. Now I just needed to sit back and watch what he got up to.
Who would say like...
For the time being at least, Saturnalia was closed. Either I was going over to the temple or I wasn't. That's all there was to it. With my sharpened wolf senses, I could hear what Mooncalf was saying to the troll.
And I think we may have to do something about it. We will have a meeting of the true believers after this evening's sermon.
Sure thing, boss. You want I should go now?
No. You keep an eye on Luton if you can. I'll go back to the sanctuary and leave a message for the others.
You got it, boss.
I need your help again, Malaclips.
They'll all need my help sooner or later. They just don't know it yet.
I overheard Mooncalf talking about a meeting of the true believers. I'd really like to know what that was about.
It's tough to find out what the cult of Anu is up to.
Is there any way I could listen in to one of Mooncalf's sermons?
The sermons don't take place here. They hold them in the inner sanctum.
The inner sanctum?
It's the center of worship here in the Temple of Small Gods.
How come? I mean, there are a vast number of gods and goddesses that the temple has to provide for. Are you telling me they all have to share one room for the services?
Absolutely. High priests are always complaining that so-and-so was hogging the sanctum all morning, or that such and such left hair at the bottom of the holy font. It causes a lot of tension around the temple.
Can you get me in there? I'd like to have a look around.
I could arrange to have the sanctum for a while if I told them I had a follower, but I don't.
Carlotta says she's a follower of Errata. Is that right?
Bah! I am the only true follower of Errata in the whole of Ankh-Morpork. Unless you have seen the light, Luton.
Seen the light?
Do you believe in the ways of Errata?
How could I not? Surely, Errata is the most worthy of all gods to follow.
Either you've just had a miraculous conversion or you're learning to lie. Good. A useful skill in followers of Errata.
So if I agree to be your follower, you can get us into the inner sanctum.
Yes, I can. But you wouldn't really be my follower. The followers of Errata don't follow each other. We don't even follow Errata. We follow our own ways.
So why is there a church of Errata at all?
You're learning, Luton. Keep thinking like that and you'll go far in the church.
So can you get me into the inner sanctum?
I can, provided we can find a time when the cult of Anu aren't there.
Are Mooncalf's lot in there often?
All the time. And that's not all either. He sneaks away after each one. I think they've got a secret sanctuary somewhere.
I'd like to find that.
Actually, I'd quite like you to find it too.
Can't resist a secret, eh?
No, I'd just like to get in the way of everything Mooncalf does. Him and his big evangelical budget and hordes of out-of-tune followers singing and chanting at all hours of the day. He's gonna get his comeuppance, and anything I can do to speed it up suits me fine.
So you'll help me?
Wait here. I'll go and make the arrangements.
It took a while, but eventually Malaclips got me into the inner sanctum. Malaclips stayed by the door to warn me if anyone was coming. The inner sanctum sported a beautiful lectern. The plaque said it was donated to the temple by Mr. Fedean, of the militant servitors of Ikebana, goddess of topiary. Searching, I discovered there was a cavity in the base of the lectern. The space under the lectern was large enough to fit a whole person inside. Unfortunately, there wasn't much room to move inside. And to my embarrassment, I got stuck.
Luton! They're coming! Hide!
I'm way ahead of you, Malaclips.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered together in the sight of our God, Anu Anu, to speak of our devotion to the Anointed One at this, our time of need. But before today's sermon, I'd like to read from the cult bulletin for a moment. Firstly, there's a jumble sale next Saturday to raise funds to buy a fresh goat to sacrifice. We'd appreciate it if as many cultists as possible could attend. We don't want to have to sacrifice another pigeon. It hardly befits a deity of the illustrious wonder of Anu Anu to be sacrificed another of Mrs. Jerboam's gerbils either. Yes, I know they breed like flies, but that's not the point.
The sermon was one of the most tedious things I'd ever had to listen to. And as if that wasn't bad enough, then the hymns started. Why the gods wanted to listen to such droning monotony was a mystery to me, but I suspected they just liked to make the mortals suffer. Turning into a wolf wasn't something I was entirely comfortable with yet. I was trying to restrict myself to just when it was really necessary. I was going to have to be careful what I did to Mooncalf's feet. I tried to follow Mooncalf, but he moved quickly and his scent was rapidly swallowed up by the stench of the Ankh. The cyan stench was coming from a bottle of perfume. I need your help again, Malaclips.
They'll all need my help sooner or later. They just don't know it yet.
I need to get back into the inner sanctum.
Nah, I'll see what I can do. Provided you are still following in the ways of Errata, of course.
Of course. I sprayed Mooncalf's feet with Sapphire's trawl perfume. That should make the little psychopath a little easier to follow. Sapphire's perfume cut through the stench of the river like a trawl wading through a dwarf street rally. The bright reek led into the shades, the oldest and most dangerous part of the city. As a wolf, I listened to what the so-called true believers were saying through one of the windows of the sanctuary.
Greetings, brethren. I call to order this extraordinary general meeting of the secret cabal of the true believers of Anu Anu.
You smell nice tonight, boss.
What?
What is that? KC2?
What are you blathering about, Foyd? Anyway, I see we're all present.
Therma not present, boss.
Therma has to keep a low profile at the moment. Do not concern yourselves with her absence.
Why should Therma have such special status? I have important business of my own to be doing, and these interruptions aid no one.
Quiet, satrap. Mooncalf wouldn't have called us together if it wasn't important.
Indeed not. There is an investigator, a Mr. Luton, who's been asking worrying questions. I think he may know about Nylon Ethertep.
I do now.
I still say this is madness. There must be a better way to glorify our beloved Anu Anu without taking such risks.
You always were the spineless one, Coombe.
Silence, Kondo. As chairman, I will not permit such disputes when the meeting of true believers has just been called to order.
When can we have a dispute?
It can wait until we reach any other business.
Damn.
Shh! What is it?
I heard something outside.
They say bravery is what tells the men from the boys. Well, I was a wolf, so I figured I could be brave and still run away.
Who would Sir like to see this time?
I'd like to use the library again.
Very well. I will show Sir the way, since it seems the labyrinthine corridors of this vast edifice are beyond Sir's meager navigational skills.
I could mess up the filing system, I suppose, if I wanted the butler to eviscerate me with sarcasm the next time I saw him. A far better plan would be to use the index to look up a book on a particular subject. The Necrotelecomnicon was a book that legend spoke of, saying that any mortal man who read it would be driven insane. I learnt about it from a copy of Necrotelecomnicon discussed for students with practical experiments that I found in the library. In this tome, there is a description of the old dark gods of the Disc, including the terrible laddering holler, Nylon Ethertep. Apparently, Nylon Ethertep was once summoned by a series of 8 murders, forming a perfect octagram, focused at the center of the Circle C, thus releasing it from the sunken city of Leshp, where he was trapped, along with drunken Cthulhu Bapalulu. The book speculated about the whereabouts of Nylon Ethertep now, but beyond him being safely imprisoned somewhere around the Circle C, it drew no conclusions. For some reason, the cultists had a map of Ankh-Morpork in the sanctuary. The sanctuary was decorated with a strange and disturbing fresco. Closely examining the fresco, I could see that one of the symbols made a frequent appearance. I couldn't easily take the map, but I could use it to work out some things. The murders were marking out a perfect octagram, just like the one that had been used to free Nylonathotep from sunken Leshp centuries ago. If I was right, there would be 2 more murders, one in Dagon Street and one in the Wizard's Pleasance. If I knew which one was next, I could stake it out. In the center of the octagram was the Disc Theater, which almost certainly meant some kind of cosmic evil was entombed there. I can't say I was enthusiastic at the thought of checking it out. How did I know if Ilsa was there or not?
Everyone on the disc knows the legend of Eleanor of Tzot. Or at least everyone knows a legend of Eleanor of Tzot. Or Krinix. Or El Harib. Ask most people and they'll tell you that she was the cause of the Tzotian Wars. Of course, ask most people and they'll tell you the patrician is a kind and benevolent man. Never trust what most people tell you. The real cause of the Tzotian Wars was a little-known goddess called Errata. Who would Sir like to see this time?
I'd like to use the library again.
Very well. I will show Sir the way, since it seems the labyrinthine corridors of this vast edifice are beyond Sir's meager navigational skills.
I looked up the octagram of murders in the library, but I could only find the entry I'd already seen in Necrotelecomnicon discussed for students. I looked up the octagram of murders in the library, but I... I looked up Hwel in the library and found his complete works. In there was a discussion of the 8 great tragedies, Hwel's bloodiest works. From the About the Author paragraph, I learnt that Hwel was a dwarf who was banished from his tribe not only because of his claustrophobia, but because of his tendency to daydream. Both undesirable, to say the least, if you work in a mine. 102, and in the prime of his life for a dwarf, Hwel now worked for Vittler's Plays at the Disc Theatre as one of the premier playwrights of the day. The 8 great tragedies were given in great detail. 8 plays, each with a collection of murders, usually with one more particularly gruesome or grotesque than the others, presumably for use in publicity trailers. The publicity trailers helped draw people into the theater by being towed around town to display posters. There was something suspiciously familiar about some of those murders. The 8 great tragedies were still in the complete works of Hwel. Well, it wasn't like they were going anywhere. Cheery collection of plays. In Titus Diplodocus, Titus was responsible for dismembering and eating various people before meeting his own grisly demise. In almost all the other plays, the lead met a horrible end. The Happy Prince of Copperhaven, who was poisoned at the end, and Tilogy and Cleffatara, who were stabbed and poisoned by an asp, respectively. Kensington, who was strangled by his wife. The Leering King, who had his eyes gouged out. The Tyrant, Sort, who was stabbed repeatedly in the back, and Truculus and Cressylic. He gets dragged through the streets of Sort until dead, and she is one of the tiny handful of protagonists to actually survive one of Hwell's action-packed blockbuster murder fests. If they held a Protagonists of Hwell's Tragedies annual reunion, the only other person there would be the lead role in The King of Ankh. That's pretty good. You've been acting long.
One is either born an actor, or one is never an actor.
Yeah, I can just see you paddling about the womb with a script in hand.
Do you doubt my credentials as the disc's premier performer of dramatic scenes?
As far as I'm concerned, one actor is as good as another. You come on, you speak your lines, and then you get killed. How hard can it be?
Here I stand, your slave, a poor, infirm, weak, and despised old man. Do you slight me such?
What?
You are not abreast of Hwell's fair pen, then, stranger.
The name's Luton. And no, I don't know Hwell's work at all.
My name is Previtier, and my realm is that of tragedy and comedy. The finest arts are my purview.
Yeah, if you say so. A man named Mundy was killed recently.
Slain amidst the bright flags of peace, eh?
Well, hung upside down in his room with his eyes plucked out, actually.
Indeed. It reminds me of Hwell's epic, The Leering King. Ah, such sweet sorrows.
What's that supposed to mean?
It means that the gods exploit our weaknesses to show us our faults.
More like the gods exploit our weaknesses because it's a bit of a laugh.
There may be truth in what you speak.
There was a murder up in the rooftops recently. A troll named Malachite was stabbed to death. Did you hear about that?
I know naught of stabbings, save the foul betrayal in The Tyrant.
The Tyrant? A play?
We performed it but recently. Ah, the grandeur of the stage.
Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war.
The Dogs of War?
In the play, the tyrant leads an army of dogs into battle, but they kept slipping all over the place because of the general muddiness.
Does he win?
Well, in the end, he's betrayed by his closest ally and stabbed to death by the people of Ephebi.
Doesn't sound like much of a victory.
No, but it's a glorious death. Et tu, Cletus. Pure poetry.
What would you say if I told you I suspected people are being murdered to summon a terrible entity to destroy the city?
I would say, doomsday is near, die all, die merrily.
That's from one of these silly plays, isn't it?
The King of Ankh, Act 4, Scene 1.
I was serious, you know. The disc might be the focal point for infernal forces that could destroy the city. I'd enjoy talking to you a lot more if you'd just stop quoting those damn plays. Do you realize how pathetic this makes you look?
What? Must I hold a candle to my shames?
You know, I think I'll be glad if this place does get destroyed by horrors from beyond time and space.
It'd be great publicity. Should I tell them how to spell my name?
Tell me about the 8 great tragedies, and don't make me regret asking you about this.
The 8 great tragedies are considered to be among the finest of Hwell's plays, each one a poignant drama with an insight into the mortal condition.
That's all you have to say?
I could tell you much more.
Such as?
I could tell of the soul-searching anguish of Village in The Happy Prince of Copperhaven, as he struggles to decide whether to avenge the death of his father, whilst in the meantime inadvertently stabbing and poisoning the entire cast in oh so many humorous misunderstandings.
No, that's fine.
Oh, in the dead vast middle of the night, he cries. Oh, that my lover's father had not hidden behind that tapestry whilst I was practicing with my poignard.
That's enough.
And the famous soliloquy, to be or not to be. Oh, what's the point? Nobody's listening. Or perhaps I could tell of the tempestuous love of Antilogy for Cleopatra, queen of the Jelly Baby.
Stop it!
Perhaps the unspeakable acts of Titus Diplodocus. If one good deed in all my life I did, I do repent it from my very soul. That's all, folks.
All right, enough.
Our revels now are ended.
Stop! I knew I shouldn't have asked. Well, I have to go.
Ah, parting is such sweet sorrow.
Whatever. I quickly transformed into a wolf and had a sniff around. There was an eerie, dark magenta scent in the theater. But what caught my attention was the magenta scent that seemed to disappear into the stage. My murderer had been here. I didn't want to disturb the marks. They might be important. I made a sketch of the symbol in my notebook.
Who would Sir like to see this time?
I'd like to use the library again.
Very well. I will show Sir the way, since it seems the labyrinthine corridors of this vast edifice are beyond Sir's meager navigational skills.
I found the obscure star-like symbol in the Necrotelecomnicon discussed for students. It called it the sign of the eel, or the Elver sign. It was apparently a protective ward against some of the older, darker gods of the Discworld. The tome also explained how to inscribe one, the order of tracing being very important. Not that I believed any of this mumbo-jumbo, but hey, you can't afford to be too careful, right? I traced the sign of the eel across the marks, exactly as I learned how to do in the Libraris Apocrypha. There was a faint click, and the next thing I knew, there was a passageway under the stage. The passageway led into a dark and ominous vault. The whole sepulchral temple seemed to be formed from curves and angles that would give geometry teachers nightmares. The centerpiece to this disturbing chamber was a stone altar engraved with a map of the Circle Sea. It looked centuries old, the kind of altar that could tell a few tales if it could talk. I was glad it couldn't. Using the map, I worked out where each of the 8 great tragedies had taken place. They made an octagram around the edge, just like the counterweight killings did in Ankh-Morpork. I could match each of the tragedies to one of the murders, and the positions corresponded precisely. I knew that someone was going to get dragged to death from the Wizard's Pleasance, and that some unlucky fellow was going to get eaten in Dagon Street. The moon over Dagon Street lit the rundown alley. It didn't look like anyone was around. It was as abandoned as the Octarine Parrot on open stage night. One of the shops in the street was called the Three Jolly Luck Takeaway Fish Bar. I remembered that name from somewhere. Something to do with Mr. Hong. I remember he went missing somehow. Amongst the debris, I found a bone that seemed a little out of place. The bone seemed out of place somehow. I wasn't sure why. I knew there was something familiar about the bone. It was a human femur. Just like in Titus Diplodocus, someone had been dismembered and eaten. That meant there was only the Wizard's Pleasance to go, and the octagram would be complete. The Wizard's Pleasance was a small, newt-haunted meadow in a horseshoe bend in the Ankh, inside the grounds of the Unseen University, separated from it but connected to the university gardens by the Bridge of Sighs. On summer evenings, if the wind is blowing towards the river, it is a nice area for a stroll. I didn't know how long I'd have to wait until something happened, but it turned out to be less than I thought. I'd suspected I'd been being followed, and I wasn't surprised to find that Al-Khali was skulking around behind me. Gods alone knows how he got into the university. But if I could do it, I guess anyone could. It was over in seconds. I was about to follow the killer's trail when I saw a familiar face.
Why did you carry on with the case, Luton?
Too many people told me to stop.
I was hoping it wouldn't come to this. I like you, Luton. It didn't have to be this way.
So you're behind this, are you?
I'm just a servant. My master, Anu, is behind this.
That beast is Mooncalf's god?
Mooncalf didn't start this cult. I did. When the last human worshippers of Anu had passed on, leaving only an empty temple in their wake, the cult lived on among the lycanthropes. My late husband got me involved, and I came back to Ankh-Morpork to arrange everything.
Came back?
I thought you'd realize, Luton. I'm Therma.
It figures. You killed Malachite, didn't you?
I didn't kill any of them. My master did that. We just arranged everything for him. He's stronger when we gather together and pray.
You were in the Temple of Small Gods each time there was a murder.
It was a perfect alibi.
Why was Malachite looking for you?
I'm his sister.
His sister? Hands up who can spot the big problem here.
I was adopted by Mr. and Mrs. Karst. They named me Therma. And Malachite and I grew up together.
What happened?
It's a tough life when you're a poor troll. And tougher still when you weren't born a troll. I used to sit at the table eating bread, while the rest of the family was chewing cold sandwiches. That kind of thing leaves its mark on a girl.
My heart bleeds for you.
Malachite and I broke into the von Uberwald mansion and made off with some of the Count's valuables, including that pendant you've been carrying around.
And that jeweled box in the carriage that presumably held the asp that poisoned Reagan.
That's right.
How did you and Malachite get separated?
He got caught, but he didn't tell the watch about me. I thought I'd seen the last of him. I sold most of what I got, and I was living off it comfortably. But I'd seen that painting in the hallway, and it got me thinking.
The painting that looks like you?
Exactly. I reinvented myself as a debutante, and I seduced Ulrich and married into high society. I went back to Uberwald with him, changed my name to Carlotta, and my life as a troll was forgotten. Therma was dead. Long live Carlotta von Uberwald.
Did you know Ulrich was a werewolf?
Not until the honeymoon. That was a surprise, I can tell you. Not entirely an unpleasant one, I have to say.
How did you get involved in this cult business?
Before he died, Ulrich inducted me into the worship of Anu, and it became my mission to engineer his return to power. I recruited followers and we prayed to him, gradually awakening his consciousness. He'd been stuck in the form of a small dog on the streets of Al-Khali for decades, not even remembering who he was. As our numbers grew, Anu's power grew, and eventually he was able to slip aboard a ship and steal his way here to Ankh-Morpork.
The Milka.
That's right. The Milka also stopped off at Sort. where it picked up Mundi. He was supposed to be bringing us the Sorte's falchion, having stolen it from a dig at Sorta. The archaeologists didn't even know it was there. Unfortunately, what we hadn't counted on was that Mundi was a man with few scruples and even less brains to go with it. Either he approached Horst, or Horst approached him. One way or another, he arranged to sell the sword to that devious troll.
Only he didn't have the sword, did he? He'd concealed it in one of the crates in the cargo hold.
We didn't know that. We just knew that Mundi had gone to ground. That's why I hired you to find him.
And when I did, your cult killed him. Only you'd expected the sword to be with him. And by the time he was dead, it was too late to ask him where he'd put it.
We couldn't believe our luck when you found the sword for us after Mundi's death. I'm sorry that my master had to stab you to get it.
Did you know I was going to get killed? Was that why you made me into a werewolf?
I suspected that things would get a little rough for you, and I believed you were too valuable an asset to waste.
I'm flattered. And the counterweight killings were your cult attempting to summon Nyarlathotep by mimicking the way he was summoned before. I don't get it.
With the falchion, my master can defeat the laddering horror again, and he will grow in power, ascending to the ranks of the most powerful gods, where he belongs.
That's all very well, but a lot of people died for that dream. You can't just go around killing people whenever the notion strikes you. It's not polite.
What are the lives of a few people against the prize?
Reagan knew, didn't he? Or at least suspected.
I don't know what he actually knew, but he suspected a lot. He'd been blackmailing me for weeks. He had to go.
Why are you telling me all this?
It's customary for the villain to explain his evil schemes when the hero is captured.
I'm no hero, and you're no villain either. We're just people.
You know it's not too late, Luton. Join us.
Join your cult. What happens if I refuse?
There's no point in refusing. It's already too late to stop the summoning of Nyarlathotep. Al-Khali was the 8th murder. Even now, the other cultists are gathering at the focal point for the invocation.
That would be the temple under the Disc Theater, I take it.
You're good. I'll give you that. Let's go, or we'll miss the pre-summoning.
What if I try to stop you?
Like I said, it's already too late for that. Join us, Luton. You know it's the only choice.
I could kill you and make a run for it.
You wouldn't hurt me, would you, Luton? After all we've been through.
You arranged the murder of your own brother, and you'd have me killed too if I got in the way.
So what? In this world, you get one chance at happiness.
You may be right. All right. I'll go along with this for now. But I'm not making any promises for the future.
That's good enough for me.
Carlotta told me she would have to bind me in case I got any foolish ideas, and then she escorted me into the depths of the temple. It looked like the whole crowd was there. As well as Carlotta, I recognized Mooncalf and Warb, the wizard from Saturnalia. 8 of them in all. 1 for each person on the list. But my attention was drawn to the hulking mass of Anu Anu, and the golden sword that he was wielding like it was a toothpick.
It begins.
Take your places, people. Everyone remember your lines.
Nyarlathotep, who summoned thee? In accordance with the ancient pacts, we have made 8 sacrifices in the manner prescribed. Come to us.
I was filled with an overwhelming sensation of dread. I guess summoning rituals have that effect on me.
It is here! Now I command you, by the power of the fashion, to bend to my will. Bend to my will, I command thee. I hold the fashion. You will obey me.
I got the impression that that wasn't supposed to happen. The next thing I knew, the temple was coming apart at the seams, and rocks were falling everywhere. I don't know what was wrong, but it seemed as if Anu Anu couldn't control the unspeakable force of cosmic horror that he had unleashed, and now it was loose in the city. As if my day wasn't bad enough already. After the rubble had settled, I pulled myself out from under it and had a look around. The temple seemed different somehow. And not just because the roof had caved in. Anu Anu was lying in a crumpled heap on the other side of the chamber, and Carlotta was tending to his wounds. The rest of the cult had made their getaway. Everyone but Warb, whose luck had taken a permanent turn for the worse.